Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Goff, and I am Principal Product Marketing here at Rivenera. And I am happy to welcome you to today's webinar, Software License Compliance Best Practices. This is the first session in our series, and today we're going to focus on investigation. So let's get started. I'd like to introduce my colleagues, Tommy Knowles and Meishan Piao. You guys like to give a quick intro to yourselves?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Michael. So my name is Meishan Piao. This is my 13th year helping customers around the world to drive new revenue from license compliance opportunities.
Hi, I'm Tommy Knowles. While I may not have been doing this as long as Meishan, I've been in this career for 3 years. And in my previous role, I used to do investigation on a large-scale basis for software vendors. But now, here at Rivenera, I'm a Data Success Analyst.
Perfect. Great to have you guys on board. So Tommy, why don't you kick things off and tell us what we're going to learn today?
Our objective today in this webinar is to go through raw telemetry and our data that we provide here at Rivenera, and taking you from here into building strong compliance cases, whether that be through profiling, further investigation, and building you guys a solid workflow. So when you do get a hold of our data, you can proceed forward nice and strong. So here we have our workflow chart. This is how we would tend to do things, and how I would recommend also from previous roles and my one being here. So first off, you'd gather telemetry data, and then you would work on validating this telemetry data, building a customer profile or an infringer profile in this matter, and then eventually working on to engagement. Engagement is something we're going to be doing in the future sessions. However, today we're going to be talking about validation and profiling. Here we're going to talk about why investigation matters. For me in my previous role, I used to do investigation for big cases. Many machines, many infringers. So for me, it's a critical aspect which shouldn't be overlooked. Here we're going to talk about what the data represents and how it's linked to the infringer, who is infringing, and how does the infringe upon software benefit the company that is infringing. These are all aspects which alone may not seem like much, but combined can really impact the outcome of your cases.
Yeah, thanks, Tommy. Meishan, obviously you've been doing this for a while. I know you got your feet wet doing investigation, and you've seen it all. Any other thoughts you'd want to add here?
Yeah, I just would chime in on what Tommy just mentioned, the importance of having this investigation. A lot of times, in the early stage, when we encounter customers that are interested in pursuing license compliance, there's a lot of suspicion. They suspect a particular company may be using their software illegitimately. When we capture this data from the telemetry data, what we're able to do is, pinning down the exact location of these physical machines that are using the unlicensed software from suspecting to knowing, right? So they're allowing our customers to start making data-driven decisions instead of just guessing who may be using your software. Now we're actually basing our conversation off of actual data, which really creates a lot of confidence. And then that's really the secret sauce, right, behind our success, is helping our customers to build a strong case, and then helping our partners when they engage these opportunities to increase their conversion rate.
So continuing on what Meishan said about the telemetry data being the secret sauce of what we do here at Rivenera, I couldn't agree more. And that's where the investigation side comes hand in hand. So what we'll be doing here, when I say investigate, is talk about validating this data that we do have. That's reviewing the captured data, ensuring that it points to a target that you're content with at this moment in time. And further on, what we'll be then doing is analyzing the IP and domain information which we capture within the telemetry. This could be a company domain, etc., Rivenera.com, for example. These are the sort of things that can tend to appear. And then we'd conduct a further investigation. What we do inside of here is do a company check, what type of work they tend to do, and then also investigate the company's financials. I'm sure Meishan's had some things in the future, and in the past, sorry, talking about company financials and so on.
Yeah, I would just comment on this. Why that is important is because in the early days, right, when we target a particular company with the license compliance efforts, we want to make sure that the company is in a good financial standing, that once we do reach an agreement to settle, they're in a position to pay up. A lot of times we tend to, cross-reference this part of the engagement process early on, just to make sure that once we qualify the targets, we're going after the right account, understanding that the customer is able to pay once we do reach an agreement to settle.
Thanks for that, Meishan. Honestly, the insights are fantastic, and it's nice to know that we're on the same level with these things. So, what would we be doing next is cross-referencing usage patterns. These can be things like checking data points that match the company website. This also ties hand in hand with what I was saying before with reviewing the captured data, because at least this way you're confident with the target that you're going for and making sure that this is the company that is infringing. Time patterns is something that we tend to look into quite a lot as well. And here we're going to be talking about cross-referencing the usage patterns, cross-referencing a data point to a company website. This goes hand in hand with what I was saying earlier with matching the data in the reviewed captured data. And then from there onwards, we'll be talking about time patterns, the working hours, making sure these are within the company's norm. However, this isn't always a solid thing. So this is something to review case by case, because at the end of the day, we are in the era of work from home, and these things can vary. I'm sure Meishan, once again, has also had plenty of cases where this has been something to discuss with the infringing side.
Yes, I would just comment on, working remotely ever since COVID, right, back in a few years ago. Now it's become quite a norm. So we started identifying, instead of capturing data from the physical location or the headquarters of a particular company, we're now seeing a lot of usage coming from individual homes. But even though that is the case, we're still able to connect the infringers to the company based on email domain. And that's when the data becomes quite powerful to help us build a strong case. A third point that you raised here, Tommy, which is confirmed geographic indicators, having that geo-Wi-Fi data. This piece of information is extremely important is because a lot of times we often see companies, a parent company with many, many subsidiaries around the world, having unlicensed data egressing from different parts of the world. So in order for us to build a strong case to streamline the process, right, we want to know exactly where the physical locations are located, whether we want to target individual subsidiaries or targeting the headquarters, relying on the corporate ethics, right? All this information will ultimately help us to figure out the best strategy, the most optimal path forward to engage in infringers.
Thank you for that, Meishan. You raised some really great points there, and it's definitely things for people to take on board. And the other thing that I'd like to mention, which is obviously on the slide in section E, is to spot anomalies on machines. It goes hand in hand with what you were saying with companies being remote and so forth and being all across the world. Most companies these days tend to have VPNs for their staff to connect into. These can be great indicators. And I know with our most recent SDK that we can see these VPNs. We can see who the provider is, and usually it has the ability to detect which the company name is. So if you have these features enabled in our telemetry data, it's fantastic. It nails the point on the head. And another thing to mention is that with our Wi-Fi data as well now, we have the ability to distinguish between where the Wi-Fi is saying is coming from and where it actually comes from. We could be saying that the data is coming from China. However, the data clearly shows that the coordinates are coming from the US, for example. Another good thing for us to keep in mind when doing these things with anomalies is looking out for virtual machines. Virtual machines, at the end of the day, we capture that data prior to it getting deleted. However, imagine you're going to engage in a case. It's easy for an infringer to click delete on a virtual machine, and that's the end of it for them. However, like I said, the telemetry data does detect it before. It's just a good point for your engagements to be aware of this. And here, I'll be talking about profiling the infringer. Despite the fact that we have the telemetry data, we've validated this data, we have all the evidence which is now solid. What we'd like to do further from here is profile the infringer. What this means is conducting a thorough investigation on who they are and what they do. Further from here, what we'll end up doing is saying, what services do they offer? What can they benefit from using this software? And just generally building an overall profile of the company to get an understanding of what they're doing and why they're infringing on the software that you provide.
And I see that, Tommy, you are raising a couple of really good questions here, right? For example, if we were to engage a prospect who's never purchased a legitimate software from a software publisher, I would think the approach would be a lot more straightforward because we are essentially targeting new customers, right? We know that they've never purchased anything. We have the data in front of us. The engagement process should go, fairly straightforward. Whereas if we're targeting existing customers after we verify their license configuration, we know that they purchased software in the past, but perhaps their maintenance expired. That a lot of times could be the reason why that prompted infringers to download a cracked copy in the first place. That is to access the latest and greatest without having to pay for it. In that case, we would be a little bit more sensitive in the way that we target these customers, because ultimately we want to protect the business relationship. We don't want to ruin the business relationship by taking a hard approach, right? We are sensitive to their license needs, and then ultimately want to reach to agreement to ensure future compliance. So I would say for existing customers, number one is to find out whether or not they've purchased anything, what have they purchased, when is the last time they renewed their subscription. Is the ultimate way to settle the matter is just to simply renewing their subscription or upgrading their current licenses to the latest version, right? Or is it an opportunity to convert their single user license to concurrent, which provides more flexibility? In today's day and age, we notice that there's a lot of acquisitions happening all the time. So instead of having a company to be tied to a network license or single site license, perhaps having this data in front of us could be a good opportunity to help the customers to convert into a concurrent license, which provides access to users across the globe with a lot more flexibility. And then, we hear all the time from IT managers that ultimately that is the best option they will prefer because it really helps them with their job in terms of license management. Instead of checking individual license, they now have a concurrent license, which provides access 24/7 to anyone, anybody within any subsidiary around the world. It's a lot more easier to manage than managing individual licenses.
Exactly like you said, Meishan. It's perfect in how you've explained everything here. And a key point that I loved you explained in there is that when engaging with them and the new customers or even previous customers and so forth, at the end of the day, license compliance isn't about a slap on the wrist or to tell somebody off. It's about building a stronger relationship with our customers and with yours, etc., and so forth.
And I would just comment one more thing that, a lot of times we hear from software publishers that they often get whistleblowers or their local distributors providing some level of evidence, right? Indicating that there could be some bad behavior happening on the ground. There could be companies that have been paying for legitimate licenses, but maybe not necessarily purchasing enough number of seats to provide use for all users. A lot of times, it's just a suspicion, right? So when we have the data in front of us using telemetry data, we're able to really hone down on the nitty-gritty details, providing a lot of granular details, right, indicating the specific machine that are using the legitimate software, where the users are located. All this information really is going to help us to drive a more impactful conversations when we engage these customers. As we all know, this is a very sensitive topic, so we want to be very sensitive in the way we approach this type of engagement. So before we engage, we want to make sure that we've done our due diligence and to have the best possible outcome, right? Not only to convert these software infringers into good paying customers, but also looking for a way to really help customers to continue to capture revenue year after year by keeping them a customer, by maybe identifying opportunities for upsell.
That's a great point, Meishan. And we won't give too much away. We'll make sure people come back to the next session on engagement, and we'll dig a little bit deeper into that. But those are all really fantastic points about the importance of taking the telemetry data, making it actionable, and really understanding building your base, building your case, so that way when it is time to engage, you're ready to get going. So next time we will cover the process of building engagement. We hope you'll join us then. If you've signed up for this, you're signed up for the next one. So we'll take care of that for you. But please let us know if you have any questions or comments, and we'll be in touch with some answers. Thanks, everybody. Tommy, Meishan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.